Okay, folks, welcome to That's Just My Opinion. I am Merlin, and today we are going to be talking about The Mister by E.L. James. First up, in all seriousness, before we talk about this, I do want to issue a trigger warning. This book does deal with issues of sex trafficking, abuse, and suicide. So if those are issues that upset you, please stay away from this book because they are handled with the least tact possible. I will get into my thoughts on that later, so fair warning, those are subjects of this book. Yeah, just if that's something that upsets you and you're one of the unfortunate number of people who have dealt with these issues, please stay away from this book. Alright, so anyway, getting into this, I actually didn't know this was a thing. I didn't know that E.L. James had written another book outside of 50 Shades. I've actually only read 50 Shades this year. It was hot garbage. I would not drag myself through the next two books, I'm sorry. But I found out that she had this other book because of Dominic Nobles, and he did a charity live stream of himself and a bunch of other YouTubers reading this book. And I thought, yeah, sure, I would love to see Dom get tortured for 8 hours, because if you've watched his 50 Shades series, you know how much he absolutely despises this. So, I watched the recording of his live stream, which is very good. I very much recommend it. Very entertaining to listen to. And so they only ended up getting through, I think they ended on chapter 9, which is about 30% of the way through the book. And for some masochistic reason, I decided, you know what? I need to know how this ends. I need to know how this train wreck is finished. So I went on to the Libby app and I found the audiobook for The Mister, and I started listening to it. We need a glass of wine to get through this one, folks. So, to start you out, and also I had to listen to this because I hope Dom does another charity live stream, because now I know what is going to happen in this, and there are some things that I can't wait for him to get to because they are just so bad. Alright, so anyway, so for the story, here we go, synopsis time. We meet our heroine, Alessia, who is an Albanian immigrant living in London, and she's working as a cleaner for this rich dude named Maxim Trevelyan. He is now Lord Earl of Trevithick, which, yeah, these names are awful, though I did hate the fact that his last name is Trevelyan, because if any of you have played Dragon Age Inquisition, you know that the human Inquisitor last name is Trevelyan, so that kind of annoyed me, because I love Inquisition. Anyway, so Alessia is his cleaner, and Maxim, literally his introduction chapter is him talking about having mindless, meaningless sex with his best friend. She's not just his best friend, though. No. She's his brother's widow. His brother has been dead for all of 2 weeks, and they are screwing each other. Yeah, it kind of gives you an idea of who this guy is. He's kind of a douche. Not gonna lie, he's a douche. And he's got all of this like, oh, I can't believe I slept with her. I'm like, I get it, seeking comfort from someone who gets what you're going through, but okay, still kind of, yeah. So, you meet Maxim, he's kind of a dick. Alessia is his new house cleaner, and they end up running into each other in some of the most contrived ways possible. Mostly, it boils down to Alessia comes in, sees him asleep, and he is butt-ass naked on the bed, ass up, and she is just like, oh my, a naked man, like, okay. And then she goes and she's doing laundry and she's thinking about, oh, he was just so attractive. But then this brings up the darker side. Her tragic backstory was that she was running away from somebody abusive in her past. And it's like, oh, shit, okay. Well, and then Maxim sees her and he's like, she's gorgeous, but she's my cleaner. And he goes to do Earl things. And you find out that Alessia really likes his place because she can play his piano. Cool. You meet Maxim's mother and sister, which James does a lot of descriptions that make it go, Oedipus wants his complex back. And so, yeah, that relationship is kind of, and also for the mother and the sister, this is the only time that they're brought up in the story. This is the only scene that they're in, and then they're gone. They never reappear in this book. So he has lunch with them. Basically, it's exposition dumping on everything. Whatever. Moving on. Unless he is now, Maxim just has the absolute hots for Alessia, and he starts, one, avoiding his sister-in-law, Carolyn, to, just compose music, because not only does this bro lift, he is a composer, he is a DJ, he plays like 3 different instruments, and he takes black and white photography. Oh, and he models, because, yeah. So he's kind of a douche, and he also is like, but no, this girl, she's inspired me. And again, this book is so dull. I am like trying to remember everything, but it gets so repetitive that it's so long. It's so bad. Eventually, he ends up catching Alessia playing his piano, and she's a prodigy. Like, she is an amazing piano player, and he's like, you can play my piano whenever you want. And she's just like, oh, wow, really? Thanks. This all takes place over a matter of a couple of days. Yeah, he bitches a lot about having to do work as being the Earl, but he never seems to actually work. It's kind of like, dude, get over yourself. And also, it's like, why don't you hire somebody to run all this for you? If you're really this rich, you can afford to pay a CEO or a CFO or somebody with an acronym title to run all this crap for you. You do not have to run this yourself. This isn't the 1800s. So he whines a lot about having to be the Earl, but he also, another thing James handles with the tact of a sledgehammer, that Carolyn might be pregnant. And at first, Maxim freaks out thinking that it might be his, and she says, no, there's no way it's yours because he uses condoms, and they treat condoms like they're a 100% effective method of birth control. I hope you're all smart enough to know that no method of birth control is 100% effective. But also the fact that he and Carolyn have only been sleeping together for like 2 weeks. I think the odds are pretty good that if she is pregnant, it's her husband's. But anyway, this with the whole possibly Kit's heir, and Maxim gets all, oh, but I actually want the earldom and I want the power. I'm like, but you've done nothing but bitch about having to be the Earl. This would take all that away. But then it turns out that Carolyn isn't actually pregnant. So yay, that subplot went nowhere. So during this, he's still just lusting after Alessia. Alessia is lusting after him. And at this point, I thought Carolyn was going to be our main villain. She's kind of being set up like that. We are getting our virgin whore dynamic with Alessia being the pure, sweet angel that she is, and Caroline is the gold digger. So she's trying to sink her claws into Maxim so she can stay the countess or whatever, even though she's independently wealthy. Or she can, at the very least, her dad is loaded. This is, again, another subplot that goes nowhere. So, yeah, but Maxim only has eyes for beautiful Alessia. And he ends up they end up having, I don't even remember how they got into this situation, but they end up both in the laundry room, and he ends up kissing her, and she's just like, oh my god. But then there's a knock at the door, and he goes, and he answers it, and guess what? It's people saying they're there for immigration because Alessia is in the country illegally. James, your tact is amazing. Well, but guess what? These guys aren't actually from immigration because, one, they try just breaking down the door when Maxim opens it. Two, they have really thick European accents, Eastern European accents. And three, they have no warrant and they get kind of skittish when Maxim threatens to call the police on them. So they screw off, so you're going, oh great, these are the human traffickers that brought Alessia into the country. They're after her. Alessia escapes. She runs back to the place that she's staying, who the lady she's staying with is a good friend of her mom's. So she runs to try to find out if these guys know about where she's staying and make sure they're all safe. At the same time, Maxim freaks out because Alessia's gone. She's gone, and he has to know that she's safe, and he did find out where she lived. He drove her home once. So he races to get there, and he's there waiting for her, and she's just like, Maxim, and he's like, Alessia. And you find out that the human trafficker guys did show up at that house. They did threaten the woman she was staying with, so Maxim goes, okay, you know what, you guys, because this gal, Magda, and her son are getting ready to move to Canada, and he's just like, you know what, I've got a friend who runs private security. I will call him and have you guys put under protection. Alessia, come with me to my country estate so I can keep you safe and out of the way, away from all of this. So it's like, okay, here we go. We're forcing them together. So they go to the country. They go to, I think it's Cornwall or something like that. They go and they are hanging out at one of it's on the Earl's estate, but it's like the smaller house, which is still bigger than most normal houses. And this is where Alessia and Maxim finally do the do. And oh my god, you guys, the sex in this becomes so repetitive and so boring. It's awful. Like, the plot, what little there was, grinds to a halt just to have this vacation time for Alessia and Maxim where they can pretend all of their problems don't exist for a week. Which, I'm like, alright, all well and good, but reality is going to come crashing back into this, and oh, guess what, it does. Maxim's place is broken into, and then he goes to try to deal with this. He goes up to the main Earl estate to try to talk to his people about it, leaving Alessia alone, and guess what? They know that she's there, and they attempt to kidnap her, but Maxim comes in as the big hero and rescues her, and she gets taken up to the big house, and she finds out he's an earl because, oh yeah, he hasn't told her that, because he's enjoying the fact that she likes him for him and that she doesn't know about his money, and she gets all overwhelmed and almost runs away, but he catches her and he confesses that he's in love with her, and she's like, I'm in love with you too. And they've really only known each other for about a week at this point, and they're both like, I love you. And so she knows that, and Maxim lied to the police and said that she's his fiance because he's now like, oh, she's an illegal immigrant. He knows that. He basically knows everything about her past because you find out that, oh yeah, her dad arranged a marriage for her back in Albania, and the guy is an abusive asshole. So she fled to England, getting mixed up with these human traffickers, thinking that they were going to just get her a job in England, and she fled from them. So there are two groups of people that are chasing after her. And note, this was the point that I went, the story is over. Yes, all of the crap with Caroline and his family hadn't been resolved, but I looked at my timestamp where I was in the book. There was still 3 hours left, and I was like, why is there 3 hours left? The main plot beats have been resolved. Why is there 3 hours left? And that's when I went, oh, the fiance is going to come into this. God damn it. So they end up going back to London because they have to deal with his flat being broken into, and they're going to start their little cozy life together as boyfriend and girlfriend, and it's going to be great. But literally within a couple hours of them getting back to London, Maxim goes to talk to Caroline and tell her that, you know, there's nothing between them. There never was. You chose my brother over me. And no. And she gets pissed at him, but that literally never comes back up again. Alessia decides that she's going to make him dinner. She goes to the grocery store, and her Albanian arranged marriage fiance is there waiting for her and is like, you're coming back to Albania with me. And she's like, no. And he's like, yes. Wait, is there another man? If there is, I'll kill him. So she's now worried about Maxim, so she goes, I'll go with you. So she leaves a note for Maxim saying that she has to go back, that her fiance came for her, blah, blah, blah. Please read between the lines. Maxim sees her driving away. No, Alessia! And this leads into the next segment of the book, which is Alessia, and I think his name's Anton. He's just this gangster asshole, cross-countrying or cross-continenting from England to Albania, while Maxim flies to Albania to beat them there. I'm going to skip over most of the details of this because I will talk about my issues with this part of the plot later. So they cross-country it. They get to Albania. Maxim is there. She is like, oh, because I forgot to mention, when she was driving away, she saw Maxim and Caroline together hugging, and she knows that Caroline is his sister-in-law at this point, but she thinks that they've got a thing going on, and she has this moment of like, Maxim doesn't love me, and I was like, why is this a thing? But she sees Maxim there, and she's like, you came for me, and the douche gangster guy is like, who, you? I'll kill you, and she's like, no, I'm pregnant with his baby. And everyone's like, what? And her dad is like freaking out and going, you have to marry my daughter, shotgun wedding. Literally, he has a shotgun in his hand. And Maxim's like, perfect, I was planning on proposing anyway. Here's the ring. She says yes. The douche gangster guy runs away. Maxim and Alessia are going to live happily ever after. The end. Oh boy, this book. So, let's talk about the characters. Let me get the one positive thing out of the way with this. Alessia starts the book as a virgin, but she at least has some self-awareness of her body, which is kind of nice. And I do think there's kind of a good link with her embracing her sexuality and taking command of her body, and her becoming a stronger character, more willing to stand up for herself. There we go. There's my one positive thing I have to say about this. Maxim, on the other hand, he starts out, like, literally the first chapter is, like, him banging these rando chicks, and he, like, buys coke and is, like, totally down to do cocaine and just, like, party. And then within a week and a half to 2 weeks at the absolute maximum, he goes from party boy, doing drugs and alcohol, doesn't want any responsibilities but all of the perks, to literally wanting to settle down, have a white picket fence, a minivan, 2.5 kids, and a dog in like the space of 2 weeks. I'm like, I'm all for character development and characters growing and changing, but not that fast. Oh my god. All right, and then the other thing, god, this book with the Albanian characters, and I am not an expert on Albanian culture or history or anything like that, but the way James portrays it is every bad Eastern European stereotype, uber conservative. Ugh, it was just, it was so bad. And the other thing with the asshole gangster, Anton, when he has kidnapped Alessia, and they're driving across Europe to get to Albania. There were points where I was like, James, are you trying to make us like this guy? Because that's what it felt like she was trying to do at some points, like trying to make him nuanced and complex. But he is abusive, straight up abusive. Like, he threatened to break her fingers because people were giving her attention because she plays the piano so well. He like smacks her around, he hurts her, he restrains. It's just, oh my god, he is horrible. Like, I usually like villains that have some nuance, that have some depth, that aren't just mustache twirly bad guys, but this guy, it made me so uncomfortable that James, like, almost wanted. I don't know what she was trying to do, but it just rubbed me all kinds of the wrong way. And the same thing with Alessia's dad. When you meet him, he is also abusive. He, smacked her around. He smacked her mom around. And there's a point, though, where I don't remember if it's Maxim or Alessia, I think it's Maxim, who internal monologues that, her dad does love her in his own way. And I was like, oh my god, why are you saying this? Oh my god. It's so poorly handled. And the other really problematic thing that I had with this is the suicide that I discussed earlier, is that his brother died in a motorcycle accident, and then out of left field, both Maxim and Carolyn start saying that it was maybe suicide. It comes right out of nowhere. It is not handled well. It honestly ticked me off that James tries to handle issues of abuse and heavy topics, and she handles them with the tact of a sledgehammer. It is so bad. This book is also way too long. It's like 15 or 16 hours. It's too long. It gets so repetitive. It's just bad. It is so bad. Oh my god. Like, I want to give it negative stars. It is that offensive, and oh god, it's so bad. I have no other words for it. It is so bad. If Dom ever gets around to finishing this, I weep for him, because this book is just horrible, and oh my god, so bad. Also, another thing with this, when I was reading it, and I just had this confirmed for me a few minutes ago, I kept thinking this felt like a Regency romance novel. I have read a bunch of those recently, and there were a lot of beats in it and a lot of things that made me go, this feels like a Regency. Well, from what I've heard, this is a modern retelling of another series that takes place in the Regency era. Go figure. So, yeah, the Mister. Don't read it. Please don't read it. Genuinely, just don't. Just don't. So, yeah, that's just my opinion. If you disagree with me, that's totally cool. If there's something you'd like to see me take a crack at in the future, leave your comments down below, and I will talk to you guys in a little while.